Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor are already the best fantasy backs of the season, and now they get the juiciest matchups of the week. Both are bound to go off this Sunday. We reveal our full Week 8 running back rankings on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and when I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Today, we're getting into our running back rankings for Week 8, and a lot of teams on bye, 6 teams on bye. So you'll be without, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, Kyren Williams, Travis Etienne, Ashton Jeanty, Kenneth Walker, and those Cardinals running backs if you've been counting on them. So that takes away a lot of guys, but there's still a lot of good plays this week. So starting right off at the top, we have the same top 4 guys, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Josh Jacobs. Bijan and Jonathan Taylor, though, with those matchups against the Dolphins and Titans, I mean, if you're going up against them, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I had a tough decision. Who's going to have the bigger game? I mean, I think they can both destroy their matchups. It's just a matter of, is one team going to get too far ahead and Jonathan Taylor is going to ease on the brakes a little bit. That's what kind of happened in the Chargers game. He still gave you 3 touchdowns. He didn't quite explode rushing yards wise, but they pulled away in that game. So I'm a little bit afraid of that, only to limit his cap. But I still think he could have another 3-touchdown game. I think Bijan Robinson goes off from the line of scrimmage against the Dolphins. I mean, they're terrible. These are really the 2 worst kind of run defenses, but they're also bad at controlling backs in the passing game as well. So you can do whatever you want against the Dolphins and Titans, and this trend is not going to change because there's a good chance they might trade some of their defensive assets here at the deadline and get even worse. So watch out for that.
Very true. No, at number 5, you have Quinshon Judkins of the Browns. Even though it's a tough matchup in New England, yeah. I still have him 7, though. I mean, if it was a better matchup, maybe I'd have him even higher. But Judkins has just been on a tear. He had that 1 down week, but 99 carries since week 3. It leads the NFL. He's getting utilized like crazy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the volume is just so insane, and we wish it was more defined here for the Patriots backfield in the same game. We'll get into that a little bit later, but yeah, Quinshon Judkins has definitely been the better Ohio State back. And Henderson can't even get on the field for the other team, so maybe he'll have a little extra juice there against his former teammate to kind of show that I'm having a better NFL year. I have a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He's one of them. If he was on a better team, I think he would be right up there. Right now, you have probably Jackson Dart, Cam Skattebo, and Tyler Warren probably leading everyone. So something to look at there with Judkins. He's going to get the carries every single week. The youth movement is full force in Cleveland.
Now, my running backs 5 through 7 are James Cook, Javonte Williams, Quinshon Judkins. Like, you're a little bit lower on James Cook and Javonte Williams this week, but if you have them, you're playing them. No doubt they're in your lineups, no questions asked. But your number 6 makes sense, Devon Etienne. I have him at 9, a little bit tougher of a matchup against the Falcons. But at number 7, you have Breece Hall against the Bengals. So I totally get it, an amazing matchup. But at the same time, like, it feels like the Jets have had other really good matchups, and it still is not turned into that production we've wanted from Breece Hall. Like, even against the Dolphins earlier in the year in week 4, 13 fantasy points, nothing special. Against the Panthers last week, 6 points. Against the Cowboys, 15 points. Like, I feel like that's where he kind of is going to be around the 13 to 15 point mark, because the last 2 weeks it's been pitiful at 5.9 and 6.2 fantasy points. So I have him all the way down at running back 19. But you feel really good about him at running back 7 this week.
Well, I'm also hoping that they're going to showcase what you have in Breece Hall for a trade. I mean, it looks inevitable that he's going to be traded. Does that mean they hold back and put in more Isaiah Davis? I don't think so. I think they need to sell their asset hard one more time here in this game, and they want to win a game. Look, the Bengals are a beatable team. I know the Bengals just took down the Steelers, and it's in Cincinnati, but this is yet an opportunity. Then they play the Browns next week, so this is their window to get on the board here for Aaron Glenn. So they're going to do everything they can to win a game, and Breece Hall is going to be the ticket to win that game. We'll see about Garrett Wilson if he can return in the passing game. If not, they're going to lean a lot on the running back here, and we have to see if Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields, if they sort that things out. I mean, it sounds, I don't know how they can go back to Justin Fields the way that Aaron Glenn and the owner have thrown him under the bus. So Tyrod could actually help there because he could keep it a little bit more competitive for Breece Hall, put the ball in his hands a little bit more, knowing that that's the key to winning this game. So I think there's some hope here for Breece Hall. Again, this could be definitely his last game as a New York Jet. So we'll watch that, and we'll see where he goes. But where he goes, we're going to follow because I think Breece Hall could be big for his next team.
Yeah, maybe a team like the Cardinals, if they can start, if they still have faith in themselves coming off the bye. The next 4 running backs in my ranking, starting at number 8, is Saquon Barkley, then Devin Etienne, then Derrick Henry, and then J.K. Dobbins. Your 8 through 11 go Dobbins, James Cook, Barkley, and then Henry. Let's talk about Barkley and Henry here because, man, have they been disappointments this year. Barkley hasn't had 100 yards in a game yet this season. No, I'm not talking about just rushing yards, like total scrimmage yards. He has not hit 100 yards. His usage has gone down. But last week he had 18 carries and only turned it into 44 yards. He had 42 scrimmage yards because he lost 2 yards on his one catch. And then with Henry, before the Ravens week 7 bye, he had a good game on the ground for 122 yards, but no touchdowns, and he's not involved in the receiving game whatsoever. So even that big game on the ground led to just 13 and a half fantasy points. And the 4 weeks before that, he was just terrible. So what do we expect from Henry and Barkley this week and moving forward?
Yeah, the Bears are actually kind of a tough defense in that sense to run on. So we'll see. I think the key is the Ravens getting back Lamar Jackson. That's kind of iffy still because then their offense would wake up and have to do some things and then make it a higher scoring game and then give Henry more opportunities to do what he's been doing great for the Ravens, scoring touchdowns. If he doesn't get the touchdown opportunities, not move the ball, and they're only scoring limited amount of points, then Derrick Henry's value really diminishes because it's not just the lack of scoring, but it's also falling into a hole and not being used as a receiver. So it's like a double whammy for him. Now, the Ravens somehow were favored in this game, so I think there's some optimism. We'll see. Maybe that line changes if we're not feeling that Jackson is not playing. But yeah, it just hasn't worked out all the way for Derrick Henry. I hate to say he's kind of touchdown dependent in the state of the Ravens offense. And with Saquon Barkley, the one thing I didn't expect is that the offensive line and the blocking and the running game to plummet the way it has for the Eagles. I thought he was going to have a high floor. I thought his ceiling would be limited, right? Like I still thought, okay, he's going to get his yards every game. He's not going to go off. They might limit his touches, manage his workload, but I didn't expect just the entire running game. And now the Vikings may have opened the door to stopping the tush push, and Jalen Hurts wasn't running. So where are the Eagles running the ball? And I think the Eagles have to maybe morph into a passing team. I don't know if that's so good for Saquon Barkley going forward.
Yeah, it hasn't been because Barkley it doesn't get target. He didn't get very many targets last year either. He's just not utilized in that way like he was with the Giants. But again, it's another revenge game for Barkley. It didn't work out in the week 6 performance. He scored just 7.7 points, but maybe he can put it together this week. I feel like we just keep ranking these guys high because they're names. But if you, if you drafted Junkins and Skattebo and you have those guys and Rico Dotto, like I wouldn't be scared to put Barkley or Henry on the bench for those guys that are actually performing. Like if you have better options. Moving on, we both have J.K. Dobbins inside our top 11. Like I said, you have him at 8, I have him at 11. Amazing matchup. He's been down the last couple of weeks, but he's still getting the work. He's at least going to get 14 carries like he always does, right? And he just hasn't scored a touchdown over the last couple of weeks, but the Cowboys are giving up so many touchdowns and points to running backs. It's going to happen in this game. We feel good about that. We're going to move on to the rest of our running back rankings, guys that are more running back 2 level or flex plays. We'll get to that right after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is here, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast and easy and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Also, what's great is that right around game time, like the closer you get to game time, the cheaper the tickets get. I'm waiting on those Houston 49ers tickets this week, and they're already going down day by day. I'm checking out Game Time. They're so good at alerting me when the prices drop, and I know I'm going to get the best deal with Game Time when I do end up purchasing them. And I'll get to see the view of my seat before I buy, which is extremely important, so you're not surprised when you get there. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go, download Game Time today. All right, let's continue our running back rankings for week 8. And Chase Brown is trending up with Joe Flacco, and you have him ranked as your running back 12 this week against the Jets. I'm a little bit lower at 18, but this is by far the highest he's been ranked since maybe, week 2, week 3 of the season for us. So we're both feeling a little confidence in him and optimism that he could get it going now that they have somewhat of a competent quarterback under center.
Yeah, he looked great last week against the
really
Steelers. And the matchup was very favorable. We know that the Steelers have been kind of gash against the run, but this team had been doing nothing on the ground. But I think once you have those receivers established, and this is the whole Zach Taylor MO, right? They want to pass to set up the run. They're not going to pound the ball. They want to pass the ball, but they know keeping defenses honest and seeing the things that open up with a coverage respect you have to give to Chase and Higgins opens up the running game. And that's what we saw with Joe Flacco. It was restored. We're just very thrilled right now. If you have any of the Bengals, go figure. Joe Flacco has fixed a lot of the things that we wanted to see execute with Joe Burrow, and that's coming here. And Chase Brown, again, he looked good. I don't think it was a question now. We're looking at Brown. I still think he's a very good back. Samaje Perine is getting a handful of carries behind him. He was getting a little close there with the touches, but I think this is also a chance for them to play from ahead. That hasn't been the case very often. They were behind late against the Steelers, but they still gave Brown the touches early in that game. He looked fantastic. He looked fast, quick, all that good stuff that made us want to draft him so high as a potential first-round pick in fantasy this year. So he's turning around, and I think he's going to have a big impact against the Jets. So both running backs have good matchups on this one.
Yeah, it'd be huge if, these players on the Bengals could start, like T. Higgins and Chase Brown. If they can start giving us fantasy production, that's really, we need more fantasy points just around the league with injuries and buys and all that good stuff, or all that bad stuff, I should say. Now, my number 12 running back is Cam Skattebo against the Eagles. We just saw him play against the Eagles 2 weeks ago in week 6, put up 30 points. Do I expect that? No, but he has been a beast. He's been a monster. They're utilizing him all over the place, not just on the ground. He's clearly leading the backfield, but also through the air. And he looks really good as well. And the Eagles have allowed the 8th most fantasy points per game to running backs this season. So love him at running back 12, and you're not far behind me at running back 14 this week for him.
Yeah, I just don't think you can sit Skattebo at this point. I mean, I know that Tyrone Tracy Jr. run was a bit annoying there for everyone to it's Tyrone Tracy back in the mix, but it was one big run he had against the Broncos. So I wouldn't worry. Scott is the man. I mean, everyone's just looking at this dude to spark the Giants. I know everything has gone to Jackson Dart, but I think Skattebo is just been as important in sparking this entire Giants offense because he just brings a lot of energy. He's going to play hard every game. The Eagles have been having issues against the run. I mean, that's the way you kind of attack them. I don't think he'll blow up for the same type of game maybe he had in the first matchup because this one is in Philadelphia. But the usage is going to be there, and he's just going to get the ball anytime in scoring position. So he's kind of like Zach Charbonnet, that he's going to touch the ball anytime they're inside, and they get inside a lot. And then he does a lot more, of course, than Charbonnet. He's going to touch it. He's going to catch the ball and do some damage there as well. So I love it either way. Game script independent is Cam Skattebo.
Now, after my running back 12, which is Cam Skattebo, it goes Rico Dowdle at 13, Jaylen Warren at 14, Rachaad White at 15, Jordan Mason 16, DeAndre Swift at 17, and then, like I mentioned, Chase Brown at 18. Your 13 through 18 goes Javonte Williams, Cam Skattebo, DeAndre Swift, Jordan Mason, Rico Dowdle, and Rachaad White. Let's talk about DeAndre Swift here with the Bears because he gets a really nice matchup against the Ravens, and all of a sudden he has come on. The last 2 weeks, he has at least 138 scrimmage yards. He has scored over 20 fantasy points in each of the last 2 weeks. He's balling out, and that's with Kyle Managai, who we'll talk about later, also being involved in this offense. It really seems like Ben Johnson is putting together a really, really good run offense like he had with the Lions. And in this matchup, I mean, DeAndre Swift seems like a great play this week. We still haven't put him top 12. Maybe we should have him up there. But I guess maybe it's just the worries we have with Swift's inconsistencies throughout his entire season or career.
Yeah, this has been an offense in progress. It's kind of trying to find out its identity, and the identity has been running more. That's why the Caleb Williams numbers have been disappointing. I don't know exactly what kind of defense you're going to get from the Ravens coming out of the bye. They're going to fix some things. I can guarantee you that. There's some adjustments they're going to make up there, but the Bears are just rolling, and you have to kind of pay attention to everything that the Bears had, right? It's a tough offense to defend. So if you're having issues in the back end, you got to watch for Rhamondre and DJ Moore, and then you got Kaluther Burden making some big plays. So those are tough matchups, I think, for the Ravens secondary. That's going to open up the running game here for Swift. And then, look, tight end, well, they haven't used the Cole Kmet. Now he's hurt with Colson Lovell the way we thought. So Swift is getting all the key touches there in the intermediate game as well. So I do like Swift this week. I would pause a little bit on Kyle Guy. I just don't think you can go there and just hope for the trickle down to work. They're not going to play the Saints every week. The Ravens, I figure, are going to be a little bit more competitive in this game.
Now, looking at my rankings, I think I'm already regretting the Jaylen Warren versus DeAndre Swift ranking, where I have Warren at 14 and Swift at 17. I think I might flip-flop those. I'm getting a little bit hotter on Swift as the week goes on and the more I dig into him. So, like I said, I have Warren at 14. I'm going to move him down a couple spots, but clearly I still am wanting to start him this week. You have him at 19 as a very startable guy as well. The issue is he has to face a very, very tough Packers defense, right? They're allowing the fourth fewest fantasy points per game to running backs this season. Javonte Williams and Quinshon Judkins are the only two running backs to score more than 10 fantasy points against the Packers. And it was 17.5 and 16. So they really have not allowed any running back to have like a big, big game against them. But Jaylen Warren has looked very good. His last game, 127 yards on the ground, 158 yards total. This should be a competitive game where they'll be running the ball a lot, but then also utilizing him through the air a lot as well. So the volume should be there. We'll see how efficient he can be in this tough matchup, though.
Yeah, I wonder if Jaylen Warren has some issues in this one. Will the Steelers pull a trigger on a trade? I think they're putting a lot in Jaylen Warren, honestly, to be maybe something he isn't. And partly because Caleb Johnson has been such a disappointment as a rookie that he can't even see the field. Kenneth Gainwell, you saw what he did in one game where we had the late scratch. It was the morning game against the Vikings, and Gainwell went off. So I think Warren is leaving some points on the table maybe for this Steelers running game. But in this particular matchup, that's the only way he can move the ball on the Packers. So he should get the volume. It should be a tight game throughout. I don't think they're going to sit back, both these teams, and throw the ball. That's why we love Josh Jacobs on the other side, given what Brown just did to the Steelers. So I think Warren is going to get enough volume and be involved. And if they trail a little bit in this game, I think he's going to be used even more. So in a weird way, I think you want the Steelers to trail a little bit more with Warren to really maximize his points so you could get the receiving points with the PPR, half-point PPR as well.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We're going to continue our running back rankings. It starts to get real thin very quick this week with 6 teams on bye, but we have some options that hopefully you can plug in this week if you need to. We'll get to that right after a quick break.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is also brought to you by FanDuel. And look, it's the great time to get into the NFL season. If you haven't been there already on FanDuel from the beginning, what are you waiting for? It is now week 8, halfway through the season, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little bit something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started there on the FanDuel app and FanDuel.com. All right, Michelle, it is time to close the look at our running back rankings. We're getting deeper, much deeper, because we have to, because of all those running backs you mentioned at the top of the show being on bye. So here's where we stand. Let's look down here. Now, Isiah Pacheco. Now, we got a little bit of heat last week for Pacheco being up and being recommended as a sleeper, but we came through with it, right? He scored. He looked good. This whole Chiefs offense looked good. Unfortunately, the Raiders didn't show up, so they limited the damage all those weapons could do. But Pacheco looked the best he's ever looked this season. And look, everyone says trade for a back, but Brashard Smith is a receiving back. Kareem Hunt is a pretty good backup. Pacheco started to roll. Is Pacheco a guy now we have to play every week just because the Chiefs look like they're going to score a lot more points?
I don't know if he's a guy you have to play every week, but this week with so many teams on bye, I think he's definitely going to have to be played unless you're just stacked at the running back position. I have Pacheco at running back 21 this week. You have him at 20. It's against the Commanders. I think like the Chiefs should be able to. Jaden Daniels isn't playing, right? So you'd expect them to have a comfortable lead in this game. Hopefully Marcus Mariota can put up some points so they don't bench all their starters again and let them have rest on the Chiefs side. But Pacheco's become their lead back again. They're kind of moving on from giving Hunt all the main work. They're utilizing him around the goal line all of a sudden. And that wasn't just in week 7. It was in week 6. I saw the trend happening. He didn't score in week 6, but he was starting to get used in the red zone and around the goal line. So that's why in week 7, I felt pretty good about him scoring one against that Raiders defense. But I do think Pacheco's a startable guy. It's just, he doesn't have a super high ceiling. That's just not who he is. Now, moving on, I actually have Rhamondre Stevenson ranked one spot ahead of Pacheco. You have him at 23. This is not a guy I'm excited to play whatsoever against this Browns defense, allowing the second fewest points per game to running backs this season, the fewest yards per carry at fewest yards per game, and only 3.5 yards per carry allowed to running backs as well. Stevenson has given you a few good games, but then many, many bad games this year. Like, it's been 3 games over 13 fantasy points, and then the rest are under 5 fantasy points. So this is not a guy I'm excited to start whatsoever, but the volume should be there in a game like the Patriots are going to be able to beat the Browns, or at least keep it a very close game if it ends up being a close game, where Stevenson should at least get the volume.
Yeah, you might be forced into playing him with a bye. I'm not, again, Michelle's absolutely right. You can't be excited playing him, and you got to just say, please score a touchdown. Please, Drake May, get him into the red zone. We know that is going to be the case with him over Travion Henderson. Henderson's unplayable in this matchup with his usage and how tough the Browns are against the run. So you're just hoping he gets a good 15 carries. If he gets like 55 yards or something and scores, you'll be very thrilled with that number. So that's what you're looking for, I think, as your ceiling. There just isn't a very high ceiling or a very high floor this week with Stevenson. So hope for the best. Again, based on the ranking, you have to play him just because there's so many people out, and you probably need him as an RB2 or flex.
Yeah, and now you have Chuba Hubbard at running back 21 against the Bills this week, and maybe that's just showing how weak the position is. I couldn't get him up there. I have him at 27. I think Rico Dowdle showed last week he is by far the better running back for this team. They were struggling to get going, and for some reason they were trying to get Hubbard going right after his injury. Then they went to Rico Dowdle, and guess what? They look so much better. On the season, Dowdle has been so much more efficient. He's been the second most efficient running back in the league, just behind Bijan Robinson, while Hubbard's been one of the least efficient. And the last 3 games played for Hubbard, it's been 8.6 points, 8.4, 6.5. I get they're playing a good Bills defense, like an easy Bills run defense, but I'm all over Rico Dowdle this week. I think the team has to see they're so much better when they have him. That Hubbard, I just don't know how much playing time or usage he'll get.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing developing. Like we all need the Panthers to trade one of these backs. Like Rico Dowdle is actually the more appealing asset at this point. I never thought I would say that, but he is a free agent next year. So do you really want to invest in both these backs? Do you need both of them? Are you forcing a split here? That said, I mean, this is a game where maybe they can run because the Bills are not very good against the run. I think that's the thing. And the Panthers, look, they're competitive now. I mean, they're 4-3. So this is not going to be a pushover. I mean, if you look at the standings and you look at the records, you're like 4-2 Bills and 4-3 Panthers. Like, wait a second, what's going on here? This is bizarre land. But there are opportunities to run against the Bills. That's been their biggest weakness. I don't think you can trust Bryce Young in this game when we look at the way that they come in, and the Bills have given up some big games on the ground. So it has to be run-heavy defense. That's the way the Panthers are going to win if they're going to win at home with that. So I think there'll be ample work for both. Again, the matchup is good enough where if you're desperate, you can play Hubbard, but Dowdle would be the better play at this point.
Yeah. Now, I actually have Kamani Vidal as a playable guy this week. I know he can't, it was a bad week last week after a good first start. I think this week with all the buys, you can play him at 22. You have him at 26. I have Alvin Kamara at 23. You have him at 24 against the Colts. Tony Pollard right behind those guys. Tony Pollard's the guy, again, like I don't want to start him. And if you have any other options, please start him. Like Tajay Spears is back now, eating into the workload. Pollard had just 6 carries last week. There's been no fantasy production coming from this guy. But let's talk about Vidal, Manigai, and Bill Krosky-Merritt, because these are options you might have to play this week. And Bill Krosky is looking like he was a one-hit wonder with a big Week 5 game. Can he do it again? Now, he is leading the backfield, though, pretty significantly in snaps and definitely in carries. Like, he is the clear lead back over the last 3 weeks. It's just the last 2 weeks has turned into very little production. Vidal, he didn't really get to see much time playing on the ground because they're getting their butts kicked by the Colts. And then Kyle Manigai, he has the best matchup by far out of these 3 against the Ravens. He saw a career high 46% of snaps and 13 carries and 2 more receptions, put up 94 total yards and a touchdown. And we know Ben Johnson likes to utilize 2 running backs. So I'm kind of thinking like he's going to keep doing that moving forward, especially in a matchup that favors the running back. So I'm fine with playing Kyle Manigai this week, even though you're saying to wait on him. Just don't know if you have the chance to wait on him if you're struggling this week at running back.
Yeah, I mean, the other option, if you're really desperate, I guess, if you're looking for a similar thing, I mean, Kendrick Miller is down. So I've seen a lot of editions of Devin Neal this week. I don't know what you're going to get with Kamara. I think that's more of a speculative play or an ad versus a play and all this week. Now, interesting thing with Vidal, I don't love this matchup against the Vikings, but Hassan Haskins looks very doubtful to play. So Vidal could get a little extra here. I think they're going to have to keep, I don't know how many backs the Chargers have to keep replacing at this point, but this is a third injured back for them. So Vidal, just by volume, might be there. I don't think the Vikings are going to run and hide the way that the Colts did. So I think he has appeal because, again, he is a straight-up starter. Now, my guy, he definitely is interesting because of that matchup there in this one. So I would just keep my fingers crossed that they can play with a lead in this one. I don't know because, again, there's some stuff on the Ravens-Bears matchup. How do we know if Lamar's playing and all that? Now, if they're playing ahead, Monagai is a much better play, as we saw. So that's sometimes hard to determine in games, and I'd much rather go with Vidal, who we know is going to get those touches. Now, Corey Krosky-Merritt, you're hoping for a touchdown, and it's it is Marcus Mariota. We got that news here. So we got Mariota in there. The Chiefs are bad to run on, so I don't know. You can roll with JCM if you're desperate and take your chances. If you had to go with the Commanders back, you certainly can't go with Chris Rodriguez Jr. or Jeremy McNichols in that game.
Yeah, and some other guys were completely staying away from Woody Marks and Nick Chubb in the Texans backfield, just a disaster. And then Travion Henderson, you can't play him. I mean, he played on like 13% of snaps this last week. He's not even allowed to play on special teams, I guess, anymore. I don't know what he did to his coaching staff, but those are just some guys that even in a bad week where you're desperate, I just wouldn't even touch them. I think even like Tyler Algier would be a better play than those guys in the Miami matchup, and hope, they can beat up on them. And both Bijan and Algier could maybe have good games in that matchup. But that will be it for today. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen of the day. For your second listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler, the Madman Roland, gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll be back tomorrow hitting on our wide receiver rankings for week 8. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.